For most of human history, attention went outward or people did not make it. In small bands, every sound, every movement, every change in weather carried a message. Hunger punished daydreaming. Danger rewarded quick scanning and fast reactions. Even rest demanded alertness because threats did not schedule themselves. Attention was not a thing people studied. It was simply the body's way of staying alive. Social life added another pressure. Belonging meant reading faces, tracking status, noticing small shifts in mood, and remembering who owed what. Missing a cue could cost food, protection, or a mate. So the mind stayed tuned to the group, not to itself. There were no classrooms and no shared manuals for inner training. Skills passed through imitation and correction, aimed at hunting, tool-making, and cooperation. When farming spread, the demands changed, but the pattern stayed. Fields required timing, vigilance, and routine, and stored grain created new worries: theft, conflict, and planning for lean seasons. Communities grew, rules hardened, and work filled the day. People learned to endure, to obey seasons and leaders, to keep track of tasks. But nobody treated attention as a muscle to strengthen on purpose. It remained a silent requirement. As the first cities grew, a new problem appeared: keeping records, grain, taxes, land, laws. So early civilizations built schools for a small group who could write and count: scribes, priests, administrators. Education shifted from watching the horizon to mastering symbols on a tablet or scroll. It sounded like progress, but the skill being trained was not attention itself. It was compliance with a system of knowledge. Lessons relied on repetition. Students copied signs, recited lists, memorized procedures, and learned the right answer by heart. It worked in a way. It produced reliable workers for temples and palaces. Yet the mind was treated like a container to be filled, not a tool to be tuned. If someone drifted, the response emphasized correction and discipline. Nobody taught the basic mechanism underneath: how to notice wandering and bring focus back on purpose. For most people, that deeper training stayed out of reach. The few who practiced sustained inward focus usually did it for spiritual reasons, inside small religious circles, not in public schooling. Attention became something you either had or lacked, a personal trait measured by obedience. Civilization demanded focus more than ever, and still offered almost no method for building it. The result lasted for centuries. Education expanded, but mind training remained separate, rare, and specialized. As big religious and philosophical movements spread, a new idea took root. The mind could be trained on purpose. People withdrew from ordinary life, not to learn facts, but to shape attention, emotion, and desire. Across different traditions, routines appeared: silence, prayer, chanting, fasting, meditation. These were not casual habits. They were structured drills, repeated daily, aimed at changing how a person experienced thoughts. But these methods were not presented as a neutral skill anyone needed, like reading or counting. They were framed as sacred paths. Training attention meant seeking purity, salvation, awakening, or closeness to the divine. The practices came with vows, rules, and moral demands, and they often required leaving normal duties behind. That framing carried a quiet message: mind training belonged to the devoted few, not to everyone. So the world gained detailed instruction on how to steady the mind, and still most people never received it as education. The farmer, the merchant, the parent, these lives demanded focus, yet focus remained assumed, not taught. Even when contemplative ideas spread outward, they often arrived as religion, not as practical mental training. The skill existed, the delivery system kept it narrow. That gap lasted for centuries. When the printing press spread across Europe, words multiplied faster than any one person could absorb. More people learned to read, and reading demanded a new kind of steady focus: quiet, sustained, and private. But that focus rarely got taught as a skill. It got assumed. If someone drifted, the problem sounded simple. They lacked discipline. Attention began to look like a character trait, not a capacity that could be trained. Then the Enlightenment pushed hard on reason. Thinkers like John Locke argued that the mind could be shaped through education and habits, and society took that promise seriously. Schools and tutors emphasized self-control, order, and proper conduct. Concentration became proof of moral strength. Wandering thoughts suggested laziness or vice. The question rarely became, how did a mind learn to hold attention? It became, why did this person fail to? As literacy kept expanding, the demand for attention kept rising with it. People had more texts, more debates, more information to evaluate, and they were expected to stay sharp inside all of it. Yet the tools offered were mostly punishments and rules, not training. Work harder, sit still, behave. In that world, attention served as an outcome of virtue, and a basic idea got missed again. Focus could have been practiced. Industrialization reshaped what society asked of a child. Work became timed, repeated, and measured, and schools followed the same logic. Mass schooling expanded, not just to teach reading and numbers, but to produce reliable workers and orderly citizens. Bells divided the day. Tasks came in batches. Progress meant moving as a group, on schedule. Attention stopped looking like a human ability. It started looking like compliance. Standardization demanded proof. Students got ranked, sorted, and compared through tests, grades, and rules that fit on paper. Teachers faced large classes and tight plans, so lessons favored what could be repeated and checked quickly. Quiet meant learning. Stillness meant effort. A wandering mind looked like disrespect. The system demanded long focus, then punished the ones who could not deliver it. It rarely asked why focus failed. So attention became a requirement, not a subject. Children got told to concentrate, but they did not get shown how to build concentration, step by step, like any other skill. Few schools taught what to do when the mind drifted, how to return, how to notice fatigue, or how to manage impulses. The modern classroom treated attention as a fixed trait, and that belief quietly shaped generations. In the 20th century, attention stopped being treated as a personal quirk and started being treated as a measurable resource. Psychologists ran experiments, timed reactions, tracked mistakes, and mapped how quickly the mind drifted. New tests sorted people by focus, fatigue, and impulse. The results looked scientific, and that mattered, because once attention got measured, it got managed. And once it got managed, someone started asking how it could be steered. At the same time, modern advertising grew into an industry with its own experts, budgets, and research. Companies no longer relied on simple announcements. They tested headlines, images, slogans, and repetition until something stuck. They borrowed ideas from psychology and used them at scale. The goal was not to inform, it was to hold the mind for a few extra seconds, then turn that pause into a decision. Attention became a marketplace. This created a new problem people had not faced before. Many still never learned how to train attention, yet they lived inside systems built to pull it away. It was not just temptation, it was competition. Newspapers, radio, billboards, and later mass campaigns all fought for the same limited mental space. The consequence was quiet, but huge. Losing focus started to feel like a personal failure, even when it got engineered. Television entered the home and changed the rhythm of attention. Before, distraction arrived in bursts, a visitor, a task, a sudden noise. Now it arrived on schedule, every evening, and it asked for nothing back. You did not need to choose a book, follow an argument, or hold a thought. You only needed to keep looking. Attention stopped feeling like work. It started feeling like something the world provided. Over time, that steady stream trained a new expectation, that the next thing came without effort. A slow moment felt like a problem to fix, not a space to use. When the internet spread, the stream stopped having an off switch. Information, entertainment, and other people stayed available instantly. Waiting disappeared, so did finishing. Attention moved from one item to the next, not because it was necessary, but because it was easy. Distraction no longer felt like an interruption. It felt like the default setting. Minds wandered during work, during conversation, even during rest, and it seemed normal because everyone lived inside the same current. In that world, training attention sounded strange, like exercising a muscle nobody believed they owned. If focus kept slipping, it looked like a personality flaw or a modern fact of life. The idea that attention could be practiced faded into the background. Then the phone stopped being a place people went. It followed them. It sat in a pocket, on a table, beside a pillow, always close enough to check without thinking. Social platforms rose and competed in the same small space. Each one measured what held attention and quietly adjusted the feed to hold it longer. What used to be a choice started to feel like a reflex. The new rhythm felt harmless at first. A quick glance during a wait, a scroll between tasks, a tap when a notification arrived. But those moments multiplied. Attention broke into tiny pieces, scattered across the day. People reopened the same apps minutes apart, sometimes without remembering why. Work, conversations, and even rest got interrupted by the urge to check just in case something changed. And for many, this marked the first time distraction felt external, not personal. It no longer seemed like simple laziness or weak willpower. The phone rewarded every return with novelty, approval, or outrage, and the brain learned to chase that next hit of relevance. Focus started to feel stolen in real time. The word many reached for was hijacked. By the time distraction started to feel unavoidable, another shift quietly took place. Scientists stopped treating attention as a fixed personality trait and started measuring it like a working ability. Brain scans and careful lab tests showed patterns that changed with practice. The word for it sounded technical, but the idea felt simple: plasticity. The brain adapted to what it repeatedly did. Attention followed the same rule. Clinical research then pushed the point further. When people trained attention in structured ways, their results changed in ways that could be tracked. Fewer lapses, better control over impulses, and a clearer return to the task after interruptions. This did not mean the mind became perfectly calm. It meant it became more steerable. Practice strengthened the systems that selected what mattered and filtered what did not. That evidence reframed old practices without needing to argue about belief. Meditation and mindfulness no longer sat only in the category of spiritual ritual. They also sat beside physical therapy and skill drills, repeatable exercises with measurable effects. Breathing, noticing, returning, and sustaining focus worked like mental reps. Cognitive training joined in, not as a cure-all, but as proof of a new idea: attention could be built. A new assumption took hold. Distraction was not just a personal failure, it was a predictable outcome of modern life. So some people stopped treating attention as something they either had or lacked. They treated it like fitness. In schools, short daily practices appeared alongside math and reading. Simple drills for noticing wandering thoughts, returning to a task, calming the body, and building patience. Workplaces followed, not out of philosophy, but out of necessity. Burnout rose, switching between tasks drained people, meetings multiplied. So training the mind became a productivity tool. Companies ran focus workshops, scheduled quiet hours, and built policies around fewer interruptions. The goal was not perfection, it was recovery. The ability to notice overload early, reset attention, and choose what mattered next. Apps then packaged the same idea into everyday routines. Phones that once scattered attention also offered timers, blockers, breathing guides, and guided practice. Digital well-being became a new kind of literacy, knowing how feeds pulled the mind and designing limits before willpower ran out. The big shift was simple. People stopped only enduring their minds. They started training them on purpose,